Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're embarking on a masterclass focused entirely on how to build a phenomenal historical mini project. If you've ever wondered how real historians take dusty old facts and turn them into compelling, living stories, well, you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to break down your early civilizations project step by step, using the absolute best evidence from your curriculum. So get ready to design something incredible.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the tools of the historian, move on to comparing early civilizations, walk through a worked project plan, do a really quick misconception check, dive into some evidence-based practice, and then wrap it all up with a summary and a final question.
Section 1. Tools of the Historian, Essential Skills. Before we even peek at an ancient civilization, we gotta know how to look at the evidence. Common Core literacy standards for social studies actually require us to base our writing on solid evidence. And that all starts with knowing the difference between primary and secondary sources. So a primary source, that's your first-hand historical evidence. Think of a diary written by an actual Roman citizen, or, a piece of pottery dug out of the dirt in Mesopotamia. It literally comes from that exact time period. A secondary source, on the other hand, is a later analysis, like your history textbook, or an article by a modern historian looking back at the events. Knowing how to tell these two apart is absolutely crucial for establishing credibility in your project.
For your mini project, you're going to need a specific toolkit, and these are the essential elements you must gather. First, you need geographic maps, because geography completely shapes the real world and dictates exactly how a civilization grows. You're also going to need timelines for measuring time and organizing your narrative. And then you need the actual evidence itself, historical artifacts and written sources. If you combine these four elements, your project is going to stand on an incredibly solid foundation.
Section 2. Comparing early civilizations, finding connections. So the whole thing really hinges on this essential question right here. How did ancient societies solve problems of power, belief, and community? This is the beating heart of your entire unit. Whenever you look at a map or read a primary source or examine an artifact, I want you to ask yourself, how does this help answer that big question? That is exactly what gives your historical research a deep, meaningful purpose. And this brilliantly illustrates how different societies solved their problems in totally unique ways. Just look at this comparison of technological developments. On one hand, we've got the Romans inventing concrete and using the arch to build these massive structures, which solved huge problems regarding community infrastructure and power. But then, on the other hand, the ancient Chinese created paper, totally revolutionizing how information, beliefs, and laws were recorded and shared. That's two completely different civilizations, making two totally different technological leaps, and both of them ended up shaping the modern world. We can actually see that exact same dynamic when we look at intellectual discoveries. The Muslim civilization invented algebra, while the people of ancient India invented the concept of zero. When you put massive discoveries like these side by side in your project, you're not just listing facts, you are comparing how different societies influenced and were influenced by scientific development. You're showing how ideas cross borders and interact.
Section 3. Worked project plan, your blueprint.
I want to make this as simple as possible so you feel completely ready to build. Just follow these 3 super digestible steps. Step 1, select your tools. Grab your maps and find your primary artifacts. Step 2, choose 2 ancient societies from your pacing guide. Step 3, compare them. Look specifically at their economic or geographic factors. Like, how did their physical locations change how they traded or lived? Keep it simple, follow these steps, and the project will practically build itself. Let's look at a concrete worked example. This lines up perfectly with the Arrow standards. On the top, we have Mesopotamia. Their big technological development was inventing writing. But why? Well, because the geographic and human factors of where they lived required them to shape their economy and keep track of really complex trade. And right below that, we have ancient Egypt, who created papyrus. That invention directly influenced the production and distribution of goods and ideas all along the Nile River. Do you see how we connect the civilization to the technology and then directly to the human impact? That's exactly what you need to do in your project. Section 4. Misconception check. Evaluating evidence. Okay, here's a critical trap that a lot of people fall into. So think about this for a second. If you find an ancient diary or an old stone carving, a true, authentic primary source, is it always 100% reliable? The answer is a massive no, definitely not. Just because someone wrote it down 2,000 years ago absolutely doesn't mean they were telling the truth. They could have been exaggerating, bragging about a victory, or just plain wrong. The NCSS C3 framework actually explicitly requires us to evaluate all sources for credibility and reliability. You always have to ask, who made this? Why did they make it? And what kind of bias might they have? Never, ever just take a source at face value.
Section 5. Evidence-based practice. Testing your skills. Let's do a little practice matching a civilization to its specific cultural impact. For the ancient Israelites, your evidence would point to how their scripture heavily influenced the later religions of Europe. For the ancient Greeks, your evidence would show how they developed writing and heavily influenced concepts of government and social systems. When you're building your project out, you'll need to clearly map your chosen civilization directly to its legacy, just like we're doing here. And when you finally reach the end of your project, you've got to frame your conclusions. Don't just let your facts trail off into nothing. Use the student outcomes from your curriculum to guide your ending. Did you compare their political systems? Did you explain their religious and cultural ideas? Did you trace trade and the diffusion of goods? And finally, did you evaluate their overall historical legacy? If your conclusion hits those 4 bullet points, your mini-project is going to be incredibly robust.
Section 6. Summary and final question, your turn.
Now, while historical timelines obviously stretch across countless empires and eras, your focus for this specific project is going to be entirely on the early civilizations. Specifically, you're going to be looking really closely at the societies of Mesopotamia and Egypt. This specific era is your historical playground for now, so pick the factors from this period that fascinate you the most.
And as you're making your choices, I want you to remember this quote. The ultimate goal of all those geographic maps, those timelines, and those ancient artifacts isn't just to make you memorize a bunch of random dates. It's to help you communicate your historical conclusions using really solid evidence-based writing. That is the core of middle school social studies, taking ancient evidence and writing a compelling, completely accurate narrative.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Let's look back at that essential question one more time. How did ancient societies solve problems of power, belief, and community? Whether they were pouring concrete in Rome, inventing paper in China, or conceptualizing zero in India, these ancient people were honestly solving the exact same human problems that we still face today. Now it's your turn. Grab your maps, gather up your primary sources, and start building your mini project right now. I seriously can't wait to see what you discover.